also as mothers. Thus, we need a feminism organized and for our particular identity and work as mothers. And indeed, I would argue a mother-centered feminism is needed because mothers, arguably so more than women in general, remain disempowered despite 40 years of feminism. Now, I use the term matricentric feminism. It's a word it's not yet in the Oxford Dictionary. I use the term matricentric feminism to define and describe this mother-centered mode of feminism. In doing this, I draw from, and some of you may know her, feminist literary critic Elaine Showalter, who in the 80s used the term gynocentric to signify a woman-centered perspective. Similarly, I use matricentric feminism to convey a mother-centered perspective. The choice to use the word matricentric over maternal and to use matricentric feminism instead of maternal feminism is done to distinguish a mother-focused feminism from the theory and politic of maternalism. A matricentric feminism therefore should not be confused with the maternalist one. Although some perspectives in matricentric feminism may be considered maternalist, they are largely limited to the activism of certain motherhood organizations, which is the subject of my second chapter in the book. Moreover, matricentric feminists understand motherhood to be socially and historically constructed, and positions mothering more as a practice than an identity. As well, central to matricentric feminism is a critique of the maternalist stance that positions maternity as basic to and the basis of female identity. As well, matricentric feminism challenged the assumption that maternity is natural to women, and that the work of mothering is driven by instinct rather than intelligence and developed by habit rather than skill. Although matricentric feminism does hold a mother-centered perspective, it does not advance a maternalist argument or agenda. Thus, matricentric feminism marks the crucial difference between a focus on mothers from a politic of maternalism. My use of the term matrifocal, as I said, is drawn from, my use of matricentric also draws from a concept of matrifocality, and I borrow here with great respect from Marian Johnson's work, and I love the title of her book, Strong Mothers, Weak Wives. And this is what she said. She's talking about matrifocal cultures here. In matrifocal cultures, there tends to have a greater gender equality because of the power of the maternal paradigm. In these societies, regardless of the particular type of kinship system, women play roles of cultural and social significance and define themselves less as wives than as mothers. Matrifocality, however, does not refer to domestic maternal dominance so much as it does to the relative cultural prestige of the image of the mother, a role that is culturally elaborated and valued. Mothers are also structurally central in that the mother, as a status, has some degree of control over her kin's unit, economic resources, and is critically involved in kin-related decision-making. It is not the absence of males may be quite present, still quoting from Johnson, but the centrality of women as mothers that makes society matrifocal. A matrifocal narrative, therefore, borrowing from Johnson, is one in which a mother plays a role of cultural and social significance, and in which motherhood is thematically elaborated and valued and is structurally central to the plot or the theory. In other words, to draw upon the works of literary theorists Hirsch, Daly, and Reddy, matrifocal narratives begin with a mother in her own right, from her own perspective, and they hold fast to this maternal perspective. In addition, a matrifocal reading or theory attends to and accentuates the maternal focus in any given text. Now, I'm frequently asked what matricentric feminism is. As a new and emergent feminism, it is difficult to define matricentric feminism other than to say that it's explicitly matrifocal in its perspective and in its emphasis. It begins with the mother and takes seriously the work of mothering, and that it is also multidisciplinary and multi-theoretical in its perspective. Below, I do this in the book, I gesture towards a possible definition of this new feminism for mothers by listing what I see as the central and governing principles and aims of matricentric feminism. And now listing. Matricentric feminism asserts that the topics of mothering and motherhood are deserving of serious and sustained scholarly inquiry. It regards mothering as work that is important and valuable to society, but emphasizes that this essential task of mothering is not and should not be the sole responsibility and duty of mothers. It contests, challenges, and counters the patriarchal oppressive institution of motherhood and seeks to imagine and implement a maternal identity and practice that is empowering to mothers. It seeks to correct the child-centeredness that defines much of the scholarship and activism on motherhood, and seeks to develop research and activism from the experience and the perspectives of mothers. It commits to social change and social justice and regards mothering as a socially engaged enterprise and as a site of power wherein mothers can and do create social change through child rearing and activism. It understands mothering and motherhood to be culturally determined and variable, and is committed to exploring the diversity of maternal experiences across race, culture, ethnicity, sexuality, biology, age, and geographical location. Finally, it endeavors to establish maternal theory and motherhood studies as an autonomous, independent, and legitimate scholarly discipline. Now, this list is, of course, only partial and provisional. It is my hope that this conference, my book, will lead to a more substantive and robust definition of this new feminist field of matricentric feminism. And is Marilyn Waring here? Okay, yes, Marilyn, I'm citing you now. Overall, matricentric feminism, to paraphrase feminist writer and activist Marilyn Waring, seeks to deliver a mode of feminism in which mothers and mothering count. Now, in the remaining time I have, and I probably won't get through it all, this is more the bleak stuff, so be warned. So what I'm going to do now, as time allows, I will now consider matric, which is the fourth chapter of the book, I will now consider matric feminism in relation to feminist theory and women's studies, or what I term academic feminism. What I argue is that matricentric feminism has largely been ignored by feminist scholars and has yet to be incorporated into the field of academic feminism. In making this claim, I'm not saying that no feminist scholarship on motherhood exists. Clearly, that is obviously demonstrated otherwise just in this conference alone. But rather that matricentric feminism remains peripheral to academic feminism. I argue that as academic feminism has grown and developed as a scholarly field, it has incorporated various theoretical models and diverse perspectives to represent the specific concerns and experience of particular groups of women, such as global feminism, queer feminism, third-wave feminism, and womanism. In contrast, academic feminism has not recognized or embraced a feminism developed and for the specific needs and experiences of mothers. The first section of this paper considers both what I call the disavowal of motherhood in 20th century feminism, academic feminism, and the disappearance of motherhood in 21st century feminism. The second section, and this is where it gets really bleak, examines the place of motherhood over the last decade in the following four venues: the syllabi of Introduction to Women's Studies courses, articles and reviews published in Women's Studies journals, the content of Introduction to Women's Studies textbooks, and papers presented in the National Women's Studies Association annual